Okay, we are streaming.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, welcome everyone to level 3. This is the first lesson in level 3, and I will be soon posting, like within the next couple days, the test for not only level 2, but for level 3 and 4. So I'm going to give you this very long test, but understand that it's actually all of the lessons up to the end of lesson or level 4. And I'm doing that because of the sheer number of questions. So I don't want to overwhelm everybody. So when you get to level 4, you're not going to be like, what? I have to study like 600 questions? What the hell's going on? And instead, you can already know all of the answers. So I will post the questions and the answers to all of those test questions for you so that you can start now and then you won't feel overwhelmed when we get to the end of level 4. Okay, so level 3, lesson 1 is all about what is holding you back that's maybe not so obvious. So secret things that can hold us back and how to overcome that. All right, well, procrastination is a huge thing for a lot of people. And the reason why you procrastinate might not be so obvious. Like we're taught that, you procrastinate because you're lazy. And you know what? I'm going to challenge that. I don't think that people necessarily procrastinate because they're lazy. I think there's something far deeper going on, okay? So if you find yourself in that position where you know that you should be working on your dream, on your chief aim, but you just don't do it. Like maybe you need to make some phone calls and call this person or that person to join with you and make this business work. Maybe you're part of a multi-level marketing company and you're going to make your wealth that way. So you need to be phoning people on your list and getting them involved in your business, inviting them to business meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you need to do stuff like that. But you're just not. You find yourself binge watching on Netflix, the last season of whatever show for the third time. And you don't need to be watching Netflix for hours and hours and hours to get a break. Okay. So what I'm talking about is not, hey, I need a break. I've been working for 16 hours every day for the last 2 months and I need a break. Okay. What I'm talking about is you've gotten enough rest. You've had a good meal. You've spent time with your family. You've got a good amount of exercise every day. And now it's time to work. You don't need a break. It's time to work. But for whatever reason, you find yourself cutting your toenails or playing solitaire on your phone or just looking at Twitter when you should probably be doing some actual productive work. What do you do when you don't want to do what you need to do? Okay, so you're going to pretend for a second that you're having a nightmare. And in this nightmare, there's a monster, all right? The monster starts chasing you. And because it's a dream, you don't think logically. You run for your life. You're screaming, you're running. You're terrified of this monster that's chasing you. All right, now all of a sudden in this dream, you realize that it's a dream. There's no such thing as monsters. And that if it's a dream, you're in control of the dream. You're the boss. So you stop running and you think to yourself, there's no such thing as monsters. So what's chasing me? So you turn around and you're going to confront this monster. And it ends up being, a little puppy or a little girl or something that's symbolic in your dream, okay? I want you to think about that in terms of a fear that you might have, that when you think about it on the surface, this fear is this horrible monster that's chasing you around, and you're so afraid of it that you just run away instead of confronting it. Well, I want you to stop running, turn around, and confront this fear, because that's probably what is driving you to procrastinate. This requires self-awareness. When you're having self-awareness, you are present in the moment, and you are looking at reality as such. It's important to have a dream, but don't live in a dream world. That's actually a famous quote by the chef Gordon Ramsay. It's important to have a dream, but don't live in a dream world. When you don't want to do something and you're procrastinating, so let's say you're part of an MLM company. I've been a part of 11 different MLMs, and I had to confront the monster one time, and I ended up with the conclusion that I really just don't like the entire idea of an MLM. Now, this is not an MLM bashing video, because I also hate those kind of videos, okay? But I realized by confronting the monster that I just don't like MLMs. I feel like they force me to hound my friends and family until I have no more friends and family left. That I have to do work that I don't really like to do and that I don't find to be productive. And I just, in general, don't find it enjoyable work. And as Donald Trump says, you should do what you love. So when I confronted that monster, I realized the reason why I was procrastinating and not making the phone calls that I needed to be making was because I felt as though I was violating my friends and family's relationship with me just to make a quick dollar. Notice, I realized I wasn't lazy. That was not the realization. It was deep down, I felt as though I was treading on my relationship with these people, these friends of mine, to make a quick buck. And I didn't like that. I disagreed with it on a fundamental level. And even though I didn't verbalize it to myself in an apparent way, that's really how I truly felt. So after confronting the monster, I realized the truth, and I stopped chasing the MLM dream in the same way. I realized that if I wanted to pursue that type of career, I would have to buy leads or somehow get leads from somewhere other than my friends and family in order for me to make it work. And so that's what I did, and I ended up being very successful. But notice how if you have that hanging over you, this looming monster, and you don't confront it, you end up just procrastinating all the time, and you don't make the phone calls. Once I realized that was the issue, I changed my focus so that I got my leads from, say, a lead company that was their job, is to generate leads for me. And then I would make those phone calls. But because I wasn't calling my friends or my family, I was just calling strangers, it worked way better for me. Now, even though that's cold calling, if you have a belief that you're just helping a stranger, the phone call is going to go much better than if you have the belief that, oh, I'm traipsing all over my friends. So when you have that procrastination monster chasing you, It's important to confront reality. Don't live in that dream world and listen to so-called experts telling you that this is the way that you should do the business. This is the way it needs to be done. Go with your gut. If something is chasing you, stop, turn around, and ask it, what are you all about? What is the procrastination monster trying to tell you? Is there a reason why you're procrastinating that is perhaps a little bit different than the story I just shared? Is there a secret fear that you have? Perhaps you think, secretly, of course, perhaps you think that you don't deserve success. Maybe you feel as though you need to be punished for something that you did years ago, and you don't deserve a lot of money. You don't deserve the finer things in life. And therefore, whenever you try and pursue a means to get the finer things in life, there's this self-sabotage program that infects everything that you do. It could be that you need to stop and forgive yourself for this sin that you did years ago, so that now you are worthy and it's okay to move on. Also, another thing that you can do is, if you find that there's some other type of fear that's holding you back, look at it and find the worst case scenario. I posted a picture, or not a picture, a clip, a movie clip from The Next Karate Kid. And in the movie, Julie, who is played by Hilary Swank, her parents asked her to visualize what she would do if a car came chasing after her and was about to run her over. So her father said, what would you do? And she said, well, I would jump up high and I would land on the hood. And then, either I would roll off from the left side or the right side, or perhaps my body would tilt forward and I would hit the windshield and then roll off onto the roof and then off the back of the vehicle. So depending on how fast the vehicle was going, I would go off one side or the other side, or off the back, just by jumping up really high. So her father got her in her mind to do that, to pretend as though there was a car coming at her, about to run her over. And then in her mind, many times, she jumped up really high. It's called the striking tiger position, I believe, in karate. And that's what she did in her mind. This car was speeding up to her, and she would jump and land on the hood. Well, in the movie clip, it shows her doing that, okay? So it literally did happen to her, where she ran out into the street without looking, and there was a car that came at her. And on instinct, because she had practiced it beforehand in her mind, she ended up doing exactly how she had practiced it. So I want you to do this figuratively. If you find that the procrastination monster is really a fear that you have about an unknown, or something that you don't know how to do, or some other fear of some disaster that could happen if you pursue your chief aim, I want you to think about the worst case scenario that you can possibly imagine if you pursue your chief aim the way that you continue to do. What is the worst thing that could happen? And I want you to imagine how you would handle it if it really did happen that way. What would you do? Well, if a car is coming at you, what are you going to do? Well, how about jump up onto the hood? Is there a way to mitigate the disaster so it's really not as bad as what you first thought? A lot of times people, they have a fear of doing something like going to the dentist because they are afraid of pain. And they're so afraid to go to the dentist that they put it off and put it off and put it off until they need major work done. But when you go, the dentist uses an anesthetic. So is it really as bad as what you feared? Probably not. Usually our fears about how bad something really is way way worse than what actually is in reality. So I want you to stop living in this dream world, this nightmare world, where there's a monster chasing after you. There are no monsters. It's not real. Spin around and confront the monster, and you'll realize that that monster is probably just a little girl or a little puppy dog. It's not actually as bad as what you first fear. After you are going through the worst case scenario, go back to chasing after your chief aim and now think about that same scenario. Now that you've played out, okay, well, if this happens, I'm going to do this in response. Now play it out again. How afraid are you of that horrible worst case scenario actually happening? Are you afraid now? You'll probably find that your fear is less than what it was when you first started this exercise. In fact, when you do this exercise on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your fear. How afraid are you of this scenario actually happening? And as you go through it over and over and over again, you'll find your fear level lessening and lessening and lessening until you almost welcome this worst case scenario happening, because instead of a fearful situation, it's going to feel more like a challenge that you can win. Once you know how to mitigate the hazard, mitigate the disaster that you imagine, it's really nothing. A monster chasing you is a horrible thing. But what if you had a bow and arrow? What if you had a giant machete? What if you had the entire US Army with you to fight this monster? Is it really going to be that bad now? Probably not. So you're going to imagine that you have all of the community of people that are trying to better themselves behind you. If you imagine a giant group of people that are all trying to chase after their chief aims, they are all out to be like-minded people, just like you, trying to better the world, make humanity kinder, more powerful, less of a victim. If you imagine that community behind you, standing with you, helping you achieve your dream, is the monster really that bad? Or do you have enough firepower that you feel completely confident that that monster that's chasing you is really just a puppy dog? Now, when we're talking about self-awareness and confronting reality, that's something that is easier if you know how to be in the real world most of the time. Now, there's nothing wrong with daydreaming. In fact, that's actually what I teach about in the first lesson in level 1 is you're going to create a mind movie. And in your mind movie, this is what's going to happen. And it's all a fantasy, right? Well, that fantasy is going to become reality. But it's still a dream. That's good to do once in a while when you're working on your chief aim. But for the most part, you should be living in reality. So if you walk into a restaurant, look around. Really, really observe. What kind of chairs are in the restaurant? Is there a bar? Is the bar separate from the dining hall? Where's the bathroom? Is there a bathroom with many stalls in it? Or is there just a one room type of bathroom? What kind of plates do they have? What kind of glassware do they have in the restaurant? How many people are in the restaurant? Is there kind of an even amount of demographics in this restaurant, or is it mostly male? Is it mostly female? Are there a lot of kids? Is it a family-friendly establishment? Is it licensed? What kind of restaurant is it? What kind of food do they serve? Those are the types of things that when you walk into a room, you should be always observing. And it doesn't matter if it's a restaurant or if it's a school or if it's a government building or the mall. Always be observing your surroundings and look at things that really do exist. You know, there's an argument that it's kind of a conspiracy theory, actually, that the powers that be are trying to take this away from us by creating more and more digital things. You know, when you have your iPhone or your Samsung and you're pressing on the screen because it's a touch screen, you really don't have much tactile interference. It's not like the way it used to be, you know, when you were using a typewriter, you could feel the keys, and there was a difference between the key and not hitting a key. So I remember the old style typewriters. That's how I learned to type. I remember if you didn't put your finger in exactly the right position, you would actually stick your finger in between the keys. And sometimes, you know, if you were typing really fast, because I would used to type like 80, 90 words a minute. And if you were typing really fast and your finger didn't hit the next key, because you had just hit a key like a split second before that, sometimes your finger would get stuck in between the key as it was moving, and it would really hurt. And you would actually get like, you know, you would break your nail if you had long nails, or you would get some dirt on your finger where the key was striking, and it would catch and you'd have a pinch point there. And I remember that very clearly. It was very tactile back then. And nowadays, most things are, it's all like by touch, or it'll sense, it's like a device that senses the heat of your hand, and that's how it works. So as soon as your hand or your finger gets close to the pad, it will sense the heat, and then that's the only thing that really activates the device or turns it on or whatever. So there's no real button to actually press. And I don't know if you've realized that yourself, but that's something that I've realized, that over the past 5 years, things are less and less tactile. And I believe that that is by design. Now, I'm not really too much into conspiracy theories, but that is kind of by design, that we're trying to take away your tactile, we're trying to take away a real world feeling that you have, so that it's harder for you to discern reality versus cyberspace, or reality versus this imaginary world. So in an effort to make your chief aim come into reality, it's important to always understand what reality is. So when you're looking around a room, actually say to yourself, this is a glass. This is a glass filled with water. This is a computer. This is a light bulb. This is a printer. This is paper. You know, this is a binder. Actually announce what it is and look at it. And that's actually going to help you understand what reality is versus this cyberspace world that we are living in now, that really doesn't exist. Remember that we are bringing things into our reality as creators. We are creating reality. We're not being wishy-washy here. This is not a dream. So we need to know the difference between a dream and reality. The monster of procrastination is a dream. It is not real. But the fear that we feel when we think there's a monster chasing after us, that fear is real, and it really holds you back from getting things to come into your reality. So confronting that monster and understanding that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, we can mitigate this so that we don't procrastinate any longer. Remember, I'm not talking about overworking yourself to the point where you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're frustrated, you're physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, and you need a break. Okay? If you need a break, take a break, because you're only going to get more frustrated. And the important thing is to feel good now, right? So you don't want to be frustrated all the time. But what I'm talking about when I'm saying procrastination is literally you're procrastinating. You should be working. You know it's time to work. You've set aside 3 hours today. You're going to work on your dream. And you end up playing, World of Warcraft or something on your phone. Okay, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying procrastination. So confronting that fear, whatever it might be, maybe it is that you think that you don't deserve success. But then again, maybe it's just that you don't think you know how to do it. So you're afraid that you might screw it up. I did that today, actually. I procrastinated a little bit today. And I did this very exercise. And I was like, why am I procrastinating? Really? Why am I not doing what I need to do? And I needed to fix something that I needed to get functional again in order to complete my deck. Well, my fear was that I didn't really know how to fix it. So I didn't want to even try to fix it, because if I did, I might screw it up worse than if I hadn't touched it at all. Okay, so that was my fear. That was the monster that was chasing me, was this secret fear that I would fail because I didn't really know what I was doing. Well, I did this exercise. So I asked myself, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Well, the worst case scenario would be that I totally mess it up and then it won't work anymore. Okay, well, but if it doesn't work now, then how is that going to be any different than the worst fear? You see what I'm doing? So I realized that that was silly. It was just stupid of me, because if it's not working now and I screw it up so it doesn't work, then I'm in the same boat. So I may as well try to fix it, and then I might actually succeed at fixing it, and I won't have to buy a new one. Well, it ended up being, I went, yeah, this is silly. I need to go and do it. So I turned on my audios, right? Because I listen to audios. I follow the system, right? So I turned on my iPod. I listened to the audios. And while I was listening to the audios, I felt really good. And I started fixing this tool. And I fixed it. And it works. And then now I'm working on my deck again. So my procrastination monster really was just a little puppy dog. I don't have to be afraid of this little tiny bark, because the bite is not as painful as what I thought it was. Okay? So that's it for lesson 1 of level 3. Now, is there any comments, concerns, or questions?
Not for me.
Okay, great. All right. So we'll have another test, I guess a test training the next time we do this. So that'll be Thursday. Now, is there any format that you'd like to do? Like, should I just release the test and that's it, or do you want to have an actual, like, let's have a competition and get points again?
However you want to do it. I'm still getting points though because I'm getting the prize.
Okay. All right. I guess we can shut off the recording then.